Chiron, you saved us, he said, still feeling stunned that he was actually here with them. Well, I couldn't very well let you die, especially since you cleared my name, Chiron said. But how did you find out so fast? How did you even know where we were? Asked Annabeth. Well, I'm not sure if you heard me well the last time we talked through that last Iris message. But I did say I would keep watch to see if anything strange would come up there at Miami, as most strange things tend to do. Also, Iris and I have been friends for centuries, and I asked her to alert me to any important communications in this area. In which case, the Iris message you used to reveal the truth about the tree. It wasn't any trouble at all to get my cousins here to help. As you can see, centaurs can travel quite fast when we wish to. Distance for us is not the same as humans. So what now? Percy asked. Luke's got Kronos' remains in that coffin on that cruise ship back there. Do we just let him go? I'm afraid this fight is just going to have to be put to a draw, Percy, he answered. We did not have the strength in numbers. Luke was not organized enough to pursue us. Nobody won. But we got the fleece, said Annabeth. Clarice is already on her way, flying back to camp with it right now. You're all true heroes, Chiron said. For now, we must return to Camp Half-Blood. I must have some words with Mr. D when we get there. There's the rest of the summer to plan and so much training to do. Also, I am curious about the fleece myself. Hearing that made Percy worry about what Luke had said. I was going to let you take the fleece once I was done with it, Luke had said. Could Luke have lied about that? Percy learned with Kronos there was usually a plan within a plan. The Titan Lord wasn't the Olympian's evil father for nothing. He always had ways of getting people to do what he wanted without ever realizing his true intentions. That's how Ares ended up crossing the line last year with the lightning bolt problem. Percy, Chiron said, I had a talk with Annabeth on the way here about the prophecy. Uh-oh, Percy thought. It wasn't her fault, he told Chiron. I made her tell me. Well, I suppose I cannot expect to keep it a secret forever, Chiron said. So am I the one in the prophecy? Percy asked. I wish I knew, Percy, Chiron said. You are not 16 yet, but for now we must simply train you as best we can and leave the future to the fates. So that's what it meant, Percy said, last summer with the omen from the fates. When I saw them snip somebody's life string, I thought it meant I was going to die right away, but it's worse than that. It's got something to do with that prophecy. The depth they foretold. It's going to happen when I'm 16. Percy, my boy, you can't be sure about that, Chiron said. We're not even all sure if the prophecy is really talking about you. But there's no other living child of the big three but me, Percy said. That we know of, Chiron said, and Kronos is rising. And he's going to try to destroy Olympus, Percy said. He will try, Chiron agreed, and Western civilization along with it, if we don't stop him. And we will stop him, and you will not be alone in that fight, Percy. But I'm just a kid. How am I any good against a Titan Lord? Percy asked. You must try, Percy, Chiron told him, especially after today. Because whether or not you are the child in the prophecy, Kronos thinks you might be. He will finally despair of turning you to his side. That is the only reason he hasn't killed you yet, you know. As soon as he's sure he can't use you, he will destroy you. You sound like you know him, said Percy. I do know him, Chiron said. Percy kept forgetting how old Chiron was. He'd been training heroes practically since the beginning. Is that why Mr. D blamed you for the tree? Why you said some people don't trust you? Percy asked. Why would anyone think that after all you've done before for so many heroes. Because of my connection to the Titan Lord, Percy, he said. Remember your training, Percy, and remember your study of mythology. Percy tried to think, but honestly, studying wasn't his thing. Not even mythology. Then he just guessed. You owe him a favor? He spared your life or something? No, Percy, Chiron said. Kronos is my father. As soon as they made it back to Camp Half-Blood, Clarice hung the fleece onto the tree. Then a cold breeze rustled the entire camp right up to the beach, and the moonlight had grown brighter above the camp. The tree's leaves had turned from yellow back to healthy green. Everyone cheered. They saved the camp. The tree did get its power back to protect the camp, but Chiron ordered a 24/7 guard duty on the hill, at least until they could find a monster they could trust to protect the fleece. Seconds later, Clarice's campmates carried her around the camp while wearing a laurel wreath to honor and celebrate her victory. No one gave Percy and his friends any second looks, as if they never even helped her out at all. It seemed that that was the best thanks they could expect, because if they admitted they had snuck out of camp to do the quest, they'd have to expel them. And Percy honestly had quite enough attention for one really exhausting week, and it felt good just to be one of the campers for once. As they celebrated around the campfire, Clarice came over and nudged Percy from behind and whispered in his ear. Just because you were cool once, Jackson, don't think you're off the hook with Ares, she whispered. I'm still waiting for the right opportunity to pulverize you. Percy grinned. Later, it was announced that the chariot races were surprisingly going to continue the next morning, even though Tantalus was gone. It felt right more than ever with Chiron back. After the first experience, Tyson lost his interest and decided to work as Percy's pit crew. And more surprisingly, Percy and Annabeth decided to team up. He would drive, she would defend. Before going to bed, Percy gave the horses some brushing when a voice behind him said, Fine animals, horses are. I wish I thought of them. It was Hermes, only his hair was black instead of salt and pepper, and he was dressed like a mailman with a bag over his shoulder. Percy apologized about Luke and mentioned the part about Luke saying that he thought Hermes abandoned him. Then Hermes said, Percy, have you ever felt like your father abandoned you? Then Percy thought about all the attention he had gotten from all the accomplishment and wished his dad would say something for once. Then Hermes said, You know, the hardest thing about being a god is that you must often act indirectly, especially when it comes to your own children. If we were to intervene every time our children had a problem, that would only create more problems and more resentment. But I believe, if you give it some thought, you'll see that your father has been paying attention to you, and he has answered your prayers. I can only hope that someday Luke may realize the same with me. Whether you feel like you succeeded or not, you spoke to Luke and reminded him who he was. I tried to kill him, Percy said. Families are messy, Hermes said. Immortal families are eternally messy. Sometimes the best we can do is remind each other that we're related, for better or worse, and try to keep the killing to a minimum. It didn't sound like the best recipe for the perfect family, but then again, as Percy looked back at what he'd been through on the quest, he realized maybe Hermes was right. Poseidon had sent the hippocampi to help. He'd given Percy the powers over the sea he'd never known before. And then there was Tyson. Would they have ever met if Poseidon or anyone had wanted them to? How many times did Tyson save Percy's life during the summer? Oh, and before I go, I have a letter for you, Hermes said. And if you could sign this, please? He took Hermes' pen and was a little startled when he noticed George and Martha hanging on it in their small forms. Hey, Percy, did you get me a rat? Asked George. No, you can't find those at sea, Percy said. How about some guinea pigs? Percy signed quickly and handed Hermes back the pen, and Percy took a small sea blue envelope. Somehow he knew right away it was from his father. Don't get too nervous when you read it, dear, said Martha. He does have your interests at heart. Good luck tomorrow, by the way, Hermes said, though you'll have to excuse me if I root for Team Hermes. Goodbye, Percy. For now. Then he put on his pith helmet, and little white rings sprouted out. He hovered over the ground and began to glow. Percy looked away, and the messenger god disappeared into a flash of light. The letter was addressed in strong but elegant handwriting. Percy Jackson, care of Camp Half-Blood, Farm Road, 3.141, Long Island, New York, 11954. Percy still couldn't believe it was actually from his father. There were so many things he hoped it would say, like maybe it would tell him he did a good job getting the fleece, or maybe it would explain about Tyson, or apologize for not talking sooner. But when he opened it, he saw that there were only 2 simple words printed on the page. Brace yourself. Then he remembered what Martha said about being nervous. That let Percy know something was expected to happen and would knock him off his feet unless he was prepared. The next morning, Percy helped prepare their brand new white and gold chariot. Tyson made Percy and Annabeth each a javelin. Then Tyson gave Percy an extra tool. A wristwatch? It looked like any normal white and silver watch with a black leather strap. If you need protection in race, hit the button, Tyson told him. Percy didn't see how keeping time would help, but he couldn't say no to Tyson. Didn't finish in time for trip. Sorry, Tyson mumbled. Percy usually didn't like wearing watches. He thought, who cares about what time it was? But when he put it on, it was surprisingly light and comfortable. So comfortable, Percy thought he might forget he was wearing it. Then he realized it was what he'd seen Tyson tinkering on all summer, including during the quest. Percy also felt really touched that Tyson was concerned. Thanks, man, he said. He promised Tyson he'd remember the watch. Then he tried to apologize for getting embarrassed about him before and telling everyone he wasn't his real brother, but it wasn't easy to find the best words. I know what you'll tell me, Tyson said, looking ashamed. Poseidon did care for me after all. He sent you to help me, just what I asked for. You asked Poseidon for me? Percy asked. I asked for a friend. Young Cyclopes grow up all alone on the streets, learn to make things with scrap and survive. Yeah, but still, that's just so cruel, Percy said. Makes us appreciate blessings and not be greedy and mean and fat like Polyphemus. But I was still scared when the monsters tried to chase me, so I prayed to Daddy for help, and soon the Merryweather people found me. And then I met you. Best blessing ever. Sorry I said Poseidon was mean. He sent me a brother. Percy, come on, Annabeth called. The race is starting. Go, Tyson said. You will win. Okay, thanks, big guy. We'll win this one for you. Chiron blew the horn, and the chariot zoomed away and disappeared into the woods.